this life was all I ever wanted.
I'm not leaving. Not yet.
I was hoping you'd say that.
We gotta hit the streets, make some money.
People like us must destroy people like him. Buckle up.
Get Showtime free at Showtime.com.
We move on to the co-main event. We've talked about this fight in detail, so let me go into a bit of a different way to analyze it. You've got no flyweight champion. He used to be it. You've got a bantamweight champion. He's defending against Cruz. We talked about the merits of the fight, but it's against a guy who's unranked and hasn't fought in nearly 4 years. So, to what extent is Henry Cejudo responsible for the logjam, essentially, of top contenders that you're going to see emerging here at bantamweight and for the disarray at flyweight? If I may, BC, I'll go first on this one. To me, I'm going to say halfway. My answer on this question is halfway. We'll start at flyweight. Listen, one of the lessons from the Conor McGregor era, when he left featherweight and then when he ultimately got stripped, well, he left it and then got stripped and then got stripped from lightweight too, is that it's never really good for a weight class when a champion doesn't defend it and just leaves the title languishing and ultimately has to be taken from him by administrative fiat. It's never really good for it. It leaves a lot of uncertainty. You don't get that star power transference from one champion to the next. You don't have this big moment. People wonder about the value of having two people who didn't fight the other guy. Now they're fighting each other. How much does that really tell you about who's the real champion here? It just creates a lot of problems, and it takes time to get through that. He has some responsibility to bear there at flyweight, but the problem is then you had Davison Figueiredo who didn't make weight and then wins. It's like, okay, well, that's now a flyweight problem. So he helped make some of that mess there, but the flyweights also helped make that mess with him. On the bantamweight side of things, the pandemic has created a weird situation, which I won't say was good for Cejudo. It's not really good for anybody, except maybe Zoom and Amazon and grocery store chains. But what I mean to say is, in fighting Dominic Cruz, we've talked about it, BC. It's arguably a really compelling fight from a storyline. Who knows? Cruz might end up winning or being at the very, very minimum competitive. But at the same time, it's not the right fight to make at all from a rankings and meritocratic standpoint. It doesn't make any sense. It does inside of this pandemic circumstance where they've got to sell a bunch of pay-per-views to pay back Endeavor, who is struggling. But that's really about it in terms of the value of it. Again, storylines and all that kind of stuff, which all feed into the same equation. However, that's not his fault. However, he was trying to fight Jose Aldo, which Aldo is, okay, active, and is now ranked, but had one fight down there, and he wasn't at all deserving of this title shot. So here's my point. It's kind of similar to flyweight, which is to say the pandemic is making possible a fight that he kind of wanted anyway, that we really can't bitch about given the circumstances. But if it wasn't for the circumstances, he'd be trying something similar anyway. So after this, if he gets to an Aljamain Sterling or a Sandhagen or somebody who really, Peter Yan, who really deserves it, I'll dial back some of the bantamweight criticisms. But it's like flyweight, BC. He's kind of halfway responsible for both situations.
I don't think he's responsible for anything negative, but providing us with plenty of cringe moments. And let's hashtag never forget the time he put his diapers on all those title belts. Let's forget that never happened.
Oh, God.
He saved the flyweight division. When he says that, he actually did, because he provided them an opportunity at a star, a potential crossover star that they never had with Demetrius Johnson, who hit his marketing ceiling very early, even though the greatness was unparalleled. Bantamweight's not his fault either, because it's really UFC's fault at the end of the day. They really set the stage for him to become the Conor McGregor of the low weight classes by giving him an opportunity at a second title when he had not yet deserved it from the standpoint of wins. That win over Demetrius Johnson was, controversial or disputed at best. And if anyone ever deserved a rematch in that spot after the long title reign, it was obviously DJ. He ends up getting traded. And then you give Cejudo an opportunity at a diminished champion coming down in Dillashaw. Again, a fight that really didn't make sense. Now, to Cejudo's credit, every time they've teed him up with an opportunity, he's absolutely hit a home run. I didn't think he'd beat Marlon Moraes. And then he goes in there and really impresses us. So he's in this spot because he was Johnny on the spot at the moment and took advantage of the opportunities because UFC wants stars. And certainly the more we know about the Endeavor financial situation, the more it would make sense that they would do things like serving him to old names right now that would further double down on them being right that this guy had that Conor McGregor small weight class potential to be a crossover star, to reach into the Mexican-American market and all that. So it's really not his fault. He's just advantageous.
I don't know how you can look at both those divisions and be like, yeah, Henry has really there's no fingerprint of Henry here for, yes, some of the good. No, there's no denying some of the good. And I'll also blame UFC in the sense that if they structure your pay where it's way more in your incentive to call out Dominic Cruz than Peter Yan. Like if they got paid the same or even more for Yan, you'd probably see a different result with what Henry Cejudo is doing. So in that sense, yes, they create an incentive structure that forces matches like this on the fans that, again, could be good, but you're just leaving three really very deserving contenders by the side of the road. Still, I don't know how you can look at this situation and be like, well, he's got no fingerprint in any of this. Again, the flyweights, I mean, they messed that up themselves at the end there, but there's just destruction. And again, UFC tortured that division for a long time, but in the end, they kind of kept it. But he bounced. He doesn't want to do both. Okay, but you can't be both at the same time, which everybody knows, which then goes back to giving two titles to one guy or two title opportunities to one guy, knowing he's going to have to abandon it, knowing it's going to cause damage. Listen, I'm not here to say he's fully responsible. He's done many, many great things. If he does another great thing on Saturday, BC, who can say that he's not deserving of all the accolades that are starting to be heaped on him as a great, talented fighter? Because I do think Cruz will be a challenge in one way or another, worth heaping praise on him if he gets past him. Just the same, though, I think blaming UFC, they have a role to play. I don't think that's fair in assessing how we got to this point.
Well, it's UFC's fault, but that doesn't mean it's a horrific move, right? It's a smart business decision. And again, Cejudo's lived up to every opportunity he's received. So when you give a guy who's undeserving a chance to be really enter that upper room of history by being a two-division champion, you're banking on him. It worked out for them, but it's still their fault as to why there's been disarray and bottleneck within the division.
Fair enough. All right. That being said, real quickly, I didn't put this in the rundown. Do you have a prediction for that one? Or you feeling a certain type of way about the co-main?
It's just hard not to favor the youth and the unknown and give it to Cejudo here. And believe me, I'm a Dominic Cruz fan. I love his story. I rewatched the second Faber fight, and it's like, man, you forget how big Dom is for this division. Maybe that's going to be something that plays a factor. Maybe this is the perfect time for Dom to slide in and pull an upset when, we don't even know if Cejudo has had the proper training camp physically and mentally to get to this point, given the unknowns. I don't know, but he's 35. Can you go back to the well one more time? If he does, he's the Bernard Hopkins sort of mythical figure that we're going to look back on here. But no, it's Henry Cejudo's going to do this, Luke. It's going to be a decision.
Yeah, my hunch is Henry finds a way to get it done after early troubles. He tends to figure people out as time goes on, both in the case of Demetrius, where there's years apart between the first and second fight, and then against Marlon Moraes, loses a round and a half, and then starts to figure him out there a little bit later. He takes time to get going. Against someone like Cruz, I suspect that'll absolutely be the case as you begin to make reads on what he's trying to do. The other part here is about, I have no one's in my ear. I've not spoken to Cruz. No one in his team, nothing. I wonder, 35 Jay's in my ear at all times.
Yeah.
But what about the idea that, like, if Cruz loses, does he call it a day? Right? Because if he wins, there's still at least one more big payday left. If he loses at 35, I guess he could go up to featherweight. Would he really want to do that? I mean, the training has been hell on his body, hell on his feet. He had to get Botox injections into his the bottom of his feet just to numb the pain. He's had plantar fasciitis, ACL tears, the whole 9 yards. He's already got a great gig as a commentator and other things he's doing for the UFC. I don't know. I'm not saying he will, BC. I'm not saying he will retire. But I'm saying if he loses and loses convincingly, I would not be necessarily surprised if that's something we see in short order afterwards.
There's different kinds of convincing losses, though. There's the devastating kind. If it's a stoppage and he's just not, competitive on that level, of course. But there's a wide open opportunity for Dom Cruz to extend his career by getting a moral victory on Saturday night, by losing but really putting on a fight and showing you that he still has it. I think his pride would bring him back, Luke. I mean, if you work that hard to get back, I don't think you're just going to walk away.
His pride would bring him back. His smarts, he's already thought about an exit, which isn't to say, again, Saturday is that exit, even with a loss. But of the fighters in the UFC who have considered an exit plan, you would probably put Dominic Cruz at the top of that list. He's not sitting there just going through his career without thinking about what are the conditions upon which I'm going to continue this and not. And if I make an exit, what's it supposed to look like, good and bad scenarios. He's thought through it all. Plus, He's probably doing this because he's ultra competitive and he would like to see if he can prove it to himself. But I bet if he couldn't even fight ever again, he'd be very comfortable with the athletic achievements he's already stacked together.
This life was all I ever wanted.
I'm not leaving. Not yet.
I was hoping you'd say that.
We gotta hit the streets, make some money.
People like us must destroy people like him. Buckle up.
Get Showtime free at Showtime.com.